He walked free just days after sentencing.
What we found was there wasn't really an offence that fit that behaviour to charge Mr Pusey with.
Now, in a direct response, a new bill has been introduced into Victoria's Parliament.
A combination of updating outdated laws and responding to a really horrific incident.
The bill will criminalise grossly offensive public conduct with a maximum jail term of 5 years. While some legal experts are concerned the scope is too broad and subject to personal perception, the Victorian government insists the law won't be misused.
It's not the practice or the history of this state that prosecutorial authorities would misuse powers like that that are designed for truly evil acts.
This is not designed to target low-level offensive general behaviour. Frankly, I hope it's never used.
It's a change hard fought for by Stuart Schultz, whose wife, Senior Constable Lynette Taylor, was among those filmed in their dying moments. Fittingly, it's been dubbed Lynette's Law.
It's a relief that it's actually happened. I can't say I feel happy about it, because it should never have got to this stage.
With bipartisan support, it looks certain the bill will pass.
What the Parliament has done today is to modernise and simplify the law for the 21st century. Most people would accept that there is a threshold beyond which conduct is not to be tolerated.
Welcome news to all those affected by the tragedy and the truly offensive act that followed.
We now hope and expect that our courts will follow this through and not let us and our 4 loved ones down again.
It won't change anything for us. All it does, it gives me a satisfaction that from our loss, we have something that is good that's come from it.
Completely understand why the families of those police officers would feel that way, why they would want a law like that. It makes perfect sense that they would want that. It's interesting, though, because the law raises some really interesting questions. Like, do we want the government to criminalise offence? Like, should offensive behaviour be the kind of thing in a liberal democracy that a police officer can get you prosecuted for and then taken to jail? Is that what we're after?
It's very broad, but also, like, what he did is so specific. It's like, can you actually create a crime for that specific thing that he did, which was so heinous? But the idea that you can film and taunt people when they are dying and that there is no punishment for that because there's nothing that matches that in the law, you can understand why they've gone there, but it's like, how do you define that? But it is so broad, the idea of grossly offensive conduct, because I know they've put grossly in there, obviously, because offensive, people always talk about what's offensive to one isn't offensive to another. But even that then is open to huge interpretation.
Yeah, and the way that they're doing it in legislation is to say it's what the reasonable person would consider that. I'm not sure that
do you define the reasonable?
Then it's like what a judge thinks a reasonable person would think, which is often like maybe an older person who might find certain things offensive that maybe someone else doesn't.
Yeah.
It's tricky, right? Because then, obviously, as you said, Rach, the act itself, heinous and very, very, incomprehensible to so many of us. But then it's weird because then if someone is then going to try and comprehend it and put a level on that, how does that work?
You can't sit around and guess all the really terrible things people might do in the future and write a list and make specific stuff. So it does make sense to make it general.
But do you need a law then? Like, I get what the government's arguing is there was a law, it was this sort of old common law thing, and so now we want to codify. So I get that point, but it's a law coming up with a really general thing to respond to one really specific thing that happened. There's every chance would never happen again.
But what's the punishment then?
Well, he did get sentenced to imprisonment. It just wasn't very much. But I don't know. The question it raises for me is the right thing to do when you see... everyone agrees that was a horrible thing to do.
Yes.
But does it automatically follow that what we want to see is criminal punishment?
Yeah,
is that always the best way
involved.
Is it that we can't think of another way of registering our...
Well, also you would have to assume that there's going to be other forms of punishment too in a social context going forward.
But that's what we measure as justice, you know? So we feel like, sure, socially, his life might be over, you know, but we don't see that as justice.
But then the risk there is that the most terrible people don't care about social ramifications as much as well.